Do you think one mind is better than many? Neither do we. A University of Chicago Booth School of Business MBA is for curious and collaborative people who value different perspectives and ideas. Chicago Booth takes pride in empowering and being empowered by women of diverse backgrounds. We believe that fostering an inclusive community creates an environment of analytical, open minded inquiry and produces knowledge with enduring impact. Learn more today at chicagobooth.edu/elevate. Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Ellevate podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm Megan Oliver from Ellevate. Let's get right into what's happening this week at Ellevate. We have our upcoming Ellevate Roundtable, which is all about workplace challenges while being a caregiver at home. That's going to be on Thursday. That is a topic that we have had. We do have our parents and caregivers community circle, which is a fabulous community. But it's a topic that we've had a lot of people ask, can we do a full roundtable on this topic? And we were like, absolutely. So definitely be sure if you're a caregiver, you won't want to miss this one. Our Entrepreneurs Roundtable is coming up. I plugged it last week. It's all about the art of delegation, when to hire, outsource, or automate. And that's going to be on Thursday. And our Women Seeking Confidence Roundtable is going to be meeting next Tuesday. That's just a great space to go in, talk to people, build up your confidence. I used it a lot when I was first starting out at Ellevate and to kind of like build my confidence at Ellevate. And I cannot credit it enough for all the help that it did for me. I did mention community circles earlier, so let's go ahead and get into what we have coming up this week. We have our Professionals in Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging on Wednesday. We have our remote and hybrid professionals next Tuesday, and we also have our Hispanic, Latina, and Latinx next Tuesday. And we have our in-person events coming up in Austin. We have our Austin Monthly Happy Hour, all about success that lasts, enhancing adaptability and resilience. Love that topic. That's going to be on Thursday. Los Angeles is having their in-person happy hour at Serendipity Labs, DTLA, on Thursday. And our DFW chapter, hi, that's my chapter, is having their monthly happy hour next Tuesday. Again, those are all in person. So if you are in the Austin, Los Angeles, or DFW area, be sure to check those out. Now let's get to this week's interview. This is another one that Maricela did before she left. It is with Stephanie Nuesi, who works in finance at Google, supporting the company's growth and profitability efforts. She's also the founder and CEO of Max Up, a platform that helps college students and early career professionals to land their dream jobs and maximize their potentials. With more than 60 million views, she shares her career advice and content creation tips with millions of people on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. Let's go ahead and get to that now.
Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Stephanie Nuesi, and I am very excited to have this conversation. Stephanie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be here and welcoming your audience to my life and welcoming my life to your audience.
Well, I'd love it if we could start by you sharing with our audience a little bit about your background and the work you're doing.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, an island in the Caribbean, and I came to the United States when I was 15, and that was about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm currently 24. I'm a Gen Z, proud first gen Latina. And when I came to this country, all I had were two luggages and one dream, the dream of one, making my parents proud of all the sacrifices that they have made, and two, to elevate the community, especially the Latino community in the US. And I think with the work that we've done so far, we're very, very close to achieving that mission. So when I was 19, I started my own business. I became the CEO and founder of a career consulting firm. And I was specifically helping early career professionals and college students back when the whole pandemic happened in 2020. And after that, I started working towards my goals to be the first one in my family to work in corporate America. And I actually became the first one in my family to graduate from college in the US, learn English, and get a job in corporate America where I work now in technology. And so having all those titles of being the first one really sounds exciting, but it's a lot of responsibility that we hold at a very young age.
Mhm.
And I'm very proud to say that at the age of 23, 24, I've been able to hold those titles and open door and opportunities for the future generation.
I I think it's so powerful because I'm also first gen Latina in the US. So I moved here. My family's not here, and it's so powerful what you've been able to do at such a young age. So congratulations. Tell me a little bit about what was it like starting a business, particularly a business about career consulting when you're so young? Like you were 19, you kind of, and my guess is you were starting your career as well.
That's right. So when I started my business Max Up, one of my major goals was to help college students, specifically at the time, because when I was a college student, I remember all the struggles that I faced, not knowing how to write a resume, how to interview
Mhm.
properly, how to dress professionally, what it meant to send a professional email to someone that was working at a company that I wanted to work for. And it was even bigger the challenge for first gens because we can go to our parents and ask them. And I
Mhm.
actually made a post today on LinkedIn, right? Because I'm a creator and I create content on LinkedIn. And my post today was about the same thing of my mom once wanted to help me fix my resume, but she didn't know how to because my parents never graduated high school. They didn't even attend high school for that matter. And so they didn't know what a resume was. And we had to figure it out on our own, meaning like I had to go out and try to find resources and opportunities. And that's why, like, that's what led me to start my business at that age. So, as you said, yes, I was helping college students that wanted to land internships at the time. As I transitioned more into the corporate world, my audience started to change more into early
Mhm.
career professionals, recent college grads, and that's the audience that I've been helping so far for the past 3 years. And I feel like there is something about, and it's funny again. I made a post last week about it of how many people tell me you're too young to start a business, no one is
Mhm.
going to believe you. What do you have to offer? And I like to say that I prove myself to me,
I love that.
meaning that I literally did not let the age situation stop me from pursuing what I wanted to do. And that's exactly what I did. And I feel like many people should also start be doing that because it's the same scenario. If someone is 45 and they want to change careers or they want to start a business, they're
Mhm.
told you're too old for that. What, like, no one's going to believe, that what you have to offer. And I think like age is just a number.
Yeah, who here is to say you're too old, you're too young? It's you're right. It's about your what you can bring to the table.
Hmm.
How did you get kind of, I'm not gonna say over it, but how did you keep yourself going when you heard comments like that?
When I heard those comments, I definitely developed something that a lot of people are familiar with, which is imposter syndrome. I
Mhm.
started feeling like I didn't belong. I started feeling like I didn't have what people needed, and I just didn't feel quite right with what I was doing. But I use a couple of things. The first thing is my mentors and the people that were surround around me. So like my circle, they were there to help me, to remind me of my mission, of my passion. And I think when you stick to your passion and why you started in the first place, it's what's really going to drive that motivation to keep going. The second thing was, so I like to say that people have inner and outer motivation. And so the
Mhm.
inner, it's more so like the inner factors, inner motivation of what drives you, what makes you keep going. Is it like your family, is it you? So for me, it was my family, it was my parents. I knew that I wanted to make them proud, and just having them by my side and kind of like knowing that I wanted to make them proud was what kept me going. And then the outer motivation, the outer factors where when I knew that someone's life was changed. sometimes I would get messages on LinkedIn like, Stephanie, your recent post helped me land a job, or
Mhm.
Stephanie, the recent free event that you hosted on LinkedIn, like, helped me understand how to do my resume and I got an interview. Or Stephanie, like, your post literally changed my perspective of life. I feel like that for me, it's like enough motivation to like drive away the negativity and all those comments and just focus on the positive.
It's proof too, right?
It
Like it's
is, yeah. It like as you've seen, like with history, right? Like a lot of
Mhm.
people when they focus on not the so much positive, but like negative criticism or things like that, they tend to get stuck and give up on their dreams. But the people that succeed, or at least that keep going, are the people that acknowledge that those things exist. It's not about ignoring it because we know it exists. It's about acknowledging that it exists, but using it as kind of like, okay, it happened, but let me focus on what am I really driving on, with purpose, and what is really like positively impacting others.
right. So it's very powerful to remember. How did you build? So you talked about how you did lean on your circle or your mentors. How did you build that group?
That is the $1 million question. And the reason being is because I had a very different experience than many people when it
Mhm.
comes to networking. And the reason being, I was a first gen. I mean, I was barely learning English when I came here. And as many other first gen, like, we don't have connections through our family. We don't
Mhm.
have connections to our parents. Like, my parents knew no one in the country. And so I had to start from scratch. And what I started doing was, when I was in school, I remember I used to go to like all the networking events that I found. I remember that I would like go and like commute 1 or 2 hours to the big buildings in New York just to kind of get my name out there. And then I started seeing conferences where companies were sponsoring. I remember back in 2019, I attended like 19 conference in 1 year. And sometimes I would miss school, but because I had a purpose, like, I want to put my name out there. I want to start growing my community and my network. And after attending one after the other, they just kind of kept going until like I started seeing my network kind of growing immensely. And that drove me to start posting on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has been
Oh.
key driver. Yeah, I started posting on LinkedIn because I was attending these conferences, and that was like the initial stages. And then that kind of drove like my first post, which went viral. My very first post went viral. And then after that, I just started like continue sharing my story. And then LinkedIn was what like the key aspect of me really building those mentors and that audience, because people were interested in seeing college students posting on LinkedIn as opposed to like the typical audience that you used to see on LinkedIn
Mhm.
5 years ago. And so I like to say that by that time we started revolutionating of, or a revolution of people that were actually creating content that were more like college students and early career professionals. And so that right there was what helped me build a community of over 20,000 people. And right now it's like over 200,000, but like by that time, right? And I think that for people that are listening in the audience, your presence, your social footprint, your brand, it's so important for whatever it is that you want to do. Get a job, land your own entrepreneurship, side hustle, whatever the case may be. Like, your social footprint and your network will be key for you to actually do that.
So what advice would you give them?
I would say, number one, don't let your background become your liability. So
Ooh,
a
what do you
lot
mean?
of so a lot of people feel that where they come from, it's a disadvantage, and so they don't approach other people because, one, they don't think others will respond. Number two, some people have accents like myself, and we tend to tell ourselves like, oh, these people won't understand me, or these people will judge me because of my accent or where I come from. And so a lot of different factors of like cultural factors of where we come from that kind of stop us from being like proactive and reaching out to people. And so I feel like your background is your asset. So your asset meaning is who you are. It's like where you came from. it's not something negative that should affect you or stop you from pursuing something. That's why I said it's not a liability. The second thing is when it comes to like networking, even if you are the only one in the room, that's okay. I used to be the only student in the room. Sometimes, like with like hundreds of professionals with years of experience, and I was the only student there, but I never let that get him in my head, right? I just used what I knew and what I was learning, and I just spoke to people. And so that leads me to my third point, which is speak to people. People are willing to do coffee chats, people are willing to guide you, people are willing to help you, but you need to be like open for help. Sometimes we're so uh, close to getting help that we tend not to ask for help. So ask for help and be proactive about reaching out to people. That's like three things that really help me, and I hope that help people that are listening right now, especially those that don't have the network or don't have the means to get a network. I think these three and having LinkedIn as your best friend can be literally game changers.
Yeah, and like what you're saying, the first two do think the first 2 points, one was your background is not a liability. So I and the second one, which was it doesn't matter if you're the only one in the room. Both of those kind of talk back to the comment you were making about imposter syndrome, right? Like it is your story and you know your stuff and you have value to add. So don't let whatever you're thinking about yourself get in the way.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people um, tend to face imposter syndrome very early in their careers, but
Mhm.
they don't realize that that's what they're going through. And so, if this is what you're going through, I would recognize that, acknowledge it, but then speak to people about it. So I have spoken to college professors at the time, I spoke to mentors, I spoke to my family, and they all kept reminding me of who I was. So having
Mhm.
a good reminder of who you are and the value you bring, and I like to call that a SWOT analysis. I don't know if you've heard about that in like
I
marketing.
love that.
Yeah, so you do your personal SWOT analysis, like, oh, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? And so what you do there to identify what are some things that you're not such really good at, and what are some things that are really your strengths, and kind of like use that as your like motivation or affirmation to keep going. So use your personal SWOT analysis, and I promise you that imposter syndrome, like it's not going to stop you.
That's great advice. That's really, really good advice. So I want to talk to you about your generation because I have said in this podcast more than once, God bless Gen Z, and Gen Z is going to probably drive much more change than anyone can even imagine. I actually think that Gen Z much more open-minded, much more in tune with honestly themselves
Hmm.
and like what it is being human and what role work would play in your life. So I'm curious, how do you see the workplace changing with more people from your generation in the workplace now?
That is an amazing question. I think that Gen Zs understand and recognize the value that they bring to the table. And because of that, they're much more open to telling their teams what they want to do and what they wish to learn. And that has dramatically changed the way like Gen Z specifically grow within their careers, because once they feel like they're stuck, they will either voice it out or they would try to find ways in which they can get out of that like a specific hole that they're in and kind of get out and do something different. And at
Mhm.
the same time, Gen Zs are pretty open to doing a whole lot of different things while they're doing their jobs, right? They could have their
Yeah.
9 to 5. On the weekends, they would be doing photography or they would be doing another side hustle. Gen Zs are all over social media, right? Like they're using
Right.
social media for much more than just social media. Like right nowadays, like I mean, you've seen it on TikTok and like many different places. Like they're doing their thing. They're understanding that they want to retire early. They're financially smart. Like there's so many different
Mhm.
qualities that they've brought to the workplace, but highlighting the fact that like they come in sort of knowing a little bit of what they want to do. They might not know what the work entails, but they know a little bit of what they would like to see themselves doing. And at the same time, they're open to feedback, which is like something that I've seen with the people that I work with. And it's also they're open to making changes. So, Gen Zs are pretty creative and risk oriented. So I think that even for me and like the people that are surrounding me that are Gen Zs, like we're pretty open to making changes of all types, right? Like, when it comes to streamlining processes, making things better, and I feel like that's like a great addition to the workplace. And I feel like in the future, right, especially with the upcoming generation, it's even going to be even more of those changes being driven by Gen Z's, and then the earlier the later generation. I feel like that it's going to drive massive changes to the workplace, especially when it comes to the type of work that will be done, and with the
Mhm.
advancement of technology as well.
Yeah, there has to be a fully relearning of what we're learning, I think.
Mhm.
And I think the combination of generations within the workforce are is going to be very interesting to see, because I do believe massively in the power of diversity. I mean, this is why I do my job. And I think Gen Z understands that much better
Mhm.
than a lot of generations coming up previously. And I'm very curious as to how that impacts business culture within organizations. I'm really, really curious about how that will change.
I'm really curious too, and I think that it will change. As I said, like Gen Zs are really passionate about everything they do, and diversity and inclusion
Mhm.
is definitely on top of mind. I mean, I've worked with plenty different people from many different um, companies, and they all tell me, oh, I'm in this BRG, I'm in this
Mhm.
Hispanic or Black, or like all these different organizations, and they're driving changes right when they
Mhm.
start working there. Like it's crazy interesting to see like how they're doing this. So I think there's gonna be a massive change there as well.
Yeah, it's you all are passionate and have the confidence to actually do stuff, which is I mean, I I love it. I'm a big Gen Z fan, funnily enough. So speaking of doing a bunch of things at the same time, tell me a little bit about, because you do have your, big tech, like you are at a big tech company, and you have your own company, and you have kind of your influencer status on LinkedIn. So how do you manage to do all of these things?
So I wouldn't say that I have fully mastered time management, but I would say that I have become really good at it because of all the things that I've been doing ever since I started Max Up. So when I was in Max Up, I was in school and I was juggling between being a full-time student, working, I was doing internships and working in different places, and then doing Max Up as well and traveling and all these things. And nowadays, I do Max Up on the weekends. On the weekends, I'm also like an influencer, as you said.
Mhm.
So I do a lot of like speaking events, and speak different places. I work with different brands on TikTok and LinkedIn and all these different things. So I do all these different side hustles or these different things because I believe in the power of utilizing and leveraging resources. And at the same time, for everyone who's listening, who's interested in like developing or turning their passion into actual opportunities, I would say like take the time to understand and create some sort of strategy plan on how you're gonna make it happen, and then make it happen, because a lot of us stop at the action plan. I don't know if you
Mhm.
realize, like we're so eager to start something and we develop a plan and we say yes we're gonna do it, and then we stop there and we don't keep going. I think the point is you start. The start is the hardest part, but if you start, you're gonna see that eventually you're gonna learn from the mistakes and it's gonna become a habit of yours. So for me, it's a habit to like sit down on a Sunday and I'll write down the content for the next 2 weeks for LinkedIn. And so those type of things are things that you can do to like better manage your time. I use my calendar. I This is gonna be funny, but my best friend and all my friends know that if they're not on my calendar, it's not happening. So I don't go out if it's not on my calendar. That's how
I
crazy,
do the same.
that's how strict I am with my calendar. Like even if it means taking out the trash of my house, it will be on my calendar because I am very much aligned with everything I do on my calendar. And so that has helped me like maintain my mental state, being able to not get burnt out and all these different things. So I guess the final answer to it is find what works best for you and stick to it till you don't want to stick to it, basically.
You know what you're saying? It's making me think you have really good boundaries in a way.
Yes, that's a good word to use. So I have a good boundary setting where it's like my friends know that like 10, 11 p.m. I'm already sleeping because I like to take seriously my 8 hours of sleep. I go to the gym. I'm on a very special diet. Like I do a lot of self care things that are on my calendar. Same thing with like everything needs to be on my calendar, and that is to avoid one burning out and two like not having boundaries, because the worst you can do is
Mhm.
not having boundaries in your life. Like you will never see real success on the things you do unless you're able to balance out all the things that are happening in your life.
Yeah, and I think when you're very passionate about something, and this is me kind of like calling myself out. When you're really passionate about something, you can very easily forget that you still need boundaries with that, whatever that is.
Hmm.
So earlier in the conversation, you mentioned kind of talked a little bit about personal brand. And I think personal brand can be it's so broad, right? Like there's so many things that go into it. And you talk throughout this conversation about LinkedIn, about the content you created on LinkedIn, your first post going viral, which I'm so curious to know what that first post was, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me a little bit about how content creation has helped you, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to the first point, my first post that went viral, I spoke about my story and landing a job and how I was able to land the job. So something that I did differently, that I guess that's why it went viral, it's because a lot of things that you see on LinkedIn and other social media platforms are mostly success stories that are like, oh, I landed a job and that's it. Like
Mhm.
people don't talk about the failures. People don't talk about,
Right.
but how do you landed that? What was the background scenes? Like what was, what happened? And instead of just saying I landed a job, I spoke about all the rejections that I got that led me to that job. And so people resonated to the point that the post got like 1 million views in 24 hours and it went viral and like all these things. And with that led me to my content creation, which I identify an opportunity. A lot of people, as I said, don't share their rejection journeys. So what I've been sharing for the past 3.5 years on LinkedIn is my rejection journeys. Every time I get a rejection, I would post about it because I prefer to tell people the real deal on LinkedIn versus only like I'm successful and that's it. I want people to learn from my mistakes versus admire me because I'm successful. See the difference? And so that's what led me to creating content. And the opportunities that I've gotten have been great, like immensely. Like I've been featured on all these different newspaper, even like I brought my parents to Telemundo and Univision, which
Aw.
are the biggest like Latino networks in the world. And when Telemundo reached out that they wanted to interview me and interview my parents, they literally went to my parents' house in Dominican Republic to interview them and film the small town and hood that I grew up in. And that was like literally put everywhere in Telemundo and in my country. And that for me, like was like a moment of realization, like, whoa, all of this happened because I started creating content on LinkedIn and other platforms, and people started seeing that, and having my parents on TV. That is like the
Aw.
biggest thing of my, because at the beginning of this podcast, I was talking about how I came to the US with two luggages and one dream. And the one dream was to make my parents proud. Well, when I brought my parents on national TV, that was the moment for me.
Oh my God.
So I'm literally, I get too emotional when I tell the story, but it's really because, like, for me, like, as a first gen, and being the youngest of my family, I have two big brothers and I'm the youngest. And so being able to do that for my family, and opening doors, and showing the younger generation in my home country the opportunities available, I think, like, literally just changed my life ever since. And going a little bit further into like opportunities, like, I was in LinkedIn's creator program that
Mhm.
they did last year, and we got a grant for that, and different things. I've gotten like paid sponsorships with like big companies. I work with Spotify, on brand collaborations. I've worked with brands and over at TikTok for different, like, all of it happened because of one post that I made on LinkedIn. That's the main message that I want to leave here. So I think that whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, your personal brand will always carry a really huge lift into helping you achieve that. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did you find so much success with your company? Because you, like, your company became famous and viral during 2020, during the pandemic. And what a lot of people didn't understand is that I was creating content on my own page that would drive people to my company.
Mhm.
And that's what, why your personal brand is so important. So I want to leave a message to everyone that's listening, and it's build your social footprint so you don't have to build a legacy after you're dead. You build the legacy while you're alive. And that's what I want to do, because you always hear this thing of like, oh, what will be the legacy that you want people to remember you after you die? And I say, I want people to remember me while I'm alive. And that's the legacy that we need to build. And so, whatever it is that you're doing, that will have an impact on a specific people or community. I would say, like, build that legacy now so people will remember you now.
That's a great message. Start, because your legacy is definitely what you build while you're here. I have to say, the story about you taking your parents on of them being in Telemundo, it just got like, I don't know, it got me emotional. That's so special because I could imagine my parents; they'd be like flipping out.
Yeah, my
So
parents
so great.
were absolutely, like, they couldn't believe it. And well, that was one. And then after Telemundo came, Univision heard about it. And I mean, I don't know if people that are listening understand, but like, we that are coming from Hispanic households,
No, no, no.
grow up. We literally grow up
Oh yeah.
watching telenovelas at
Mhm.
Telemundo and Univision. So to seeing our parents on the TV that they grow watching, like, that is mind blowing. That's why it's so emotional to us.
It's quite special. It really, really is. I got the chance to once be on a panel with one of the founders of Univision, and that was kind of my like same moment of like, oh my god, it's Univision.
Yeah.
Um,
I had the same thing with I don't know if you know Maria Elena Salinas. She's like,
yes, of course.
so I was one of the speakers at a panel where she was moderating the panel. So I was a speaker and I felt like I was dreaming, because what?
Yeah.
Maria Elena? Like, yeah.
Oh my god, I can imagine. That's so exciting. Well, but I do want to say something because you said, remember, it all started with just one post, which is true. But I think your post, and from what I'm hearing, there's something that is very important to like point out, which is your post and your posts, because a lot of them are your story of rejection, story, you were talking about how you posted about your mom helping you with your resume and not being able to. It is very authentic, and it doesn't come off as anything but very authentic. You know what I mean? Like it is personal. And I think that is because you can make one post, but it won't touch people unless you're showing who you are, I guess.
And I think that that has a lot to do with storytelling, and that's the
Yes.
one piece that I was missing earlier. So um everything that I write, it's like how I'm talking to a friend. It's like how I wish people would read a book. So when you're reading a book, you feel like the author is talking to you, right? That's the same way that I write when I write on LinkedIn, because I want people to actually sit down and want to read it,
Yeah.
literally. And this applies to everything in life. Storytelling is not just creating content, but how you speak to people, how you present on a panel, how you do a presentation at work. Storytelling will always be your best friend for that. So I think that if I wouldn't have mastered that storytelling, I think it would have been a very different scenario. So I would say, like, mastering storytelling by being authentic to yourself and who you are, no matter what others say. Because let me tell you something, I have highlighted all the positives here, but I have gotten a lot of negatives along the way, by being authentic, because not everyone will get used to or understands your authenticity. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And it will happen. What you need to do is just keep going.
Yeah. It goes full circle to what we talked about at the beginning, right? Like, people might say negative things, but you have to keep going.
Absolutely.
And you have, which is why you've built honestly, you've done so many things and still are doing so many things, and and it's it's just really great to see.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. This has been fun.
No, thank you for having me. I don't think I have been on a podcast in a couple of months since we talked about boundaries earlier. But I'm excited to be back here and sharing a little bit about me. Everything I said here, I feel like I've never said it anywhere else. So this is going to
Oh,
be a very special episode.
I love it. I love it so much. This is why I try to make it conversational so that see what's on your mind today. Um,
Awesome.
so let's go into our lightning round because it wouldn't be this podcast without a lightning round.
Okay.
If you could time travel, where is the first place you would go?
Dominican Republic,
What time? Forward in time or backwards in time
backwards.
to how it was before? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a backwards in time traveler. I'm too scared of the future.
Same.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes and no. Depends on the
Yes and no?
depends on the mood.
It depends on the mood. That's a fair answer. That's
Yeah.
a fair answer. Uh if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Being able to read people's minds.
God, you're brave. I do not want that. If your house caught on fire, what's the first object you would run to save?
Oh man. My mom's stuff. I have a lot of stuff that my
Mhm.
mom sent me from back home. That'll be the first thing I grab.
Yeah. What skill you do you wish you had?
Skill I wish I had that I'm developing is singing. I used to do theater, dancing,
Really?
and singing in school. So I wish to get it back, because I don't know if you know, when you grow older, you tend to change voice. So hope I could bring it back.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yes.
Do you still dance?
Yes, I still dance. I still sing. I play the piano, but need to get back to like practicing.
Very cool. Boundaries. You have to make time
Yes.
for it. Mhm.
Yes.
Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice have been to not underestimate your value. So that applies to a lot of things, but the main thing is, whenever you walk into a room, whenever you have to prepare for a meeting, whenever you have to be the person, the POC, whenever you have to do something, do not underestimate how powerful you are, because we are powerful. We just
Mhm.
don't know it yet.
Very, very great advice. And finally, what's one thought you'd want to leave with our listeners?
Be proud of who you are. I feel like I said that at the beginning about your background not being your liability. I have gotten thousands of messages on LinkedIn and other places where people say, I've hidden where I come from, or I don't want others to know my background, or I feel ashamed of my accent. I feel embarrassed of my lack of English. I feel like there's so many different things. So I want to say, be proud of who you are. So something I do every morning when I go into the office is to say hi in Spanish to the workers in the coffee bar and the cafeteria. They all speak Spanish. And even though some of them speak English, I would say, hola, ¿cómo estás? Because I appreciate them. And I want them to feel like they are appreciated. So with that, be proud of who you are and then appreciate others around you. Saying one message of appreciation to another person, you don't know how much impact
Mm.
that could have on someone else.
That is a great thought to end on, because it is absolutely true. You have no idea what your words can mean to someone else.
Yes.
So, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to connecting with your audience and hope that they learn something from here. So thank you.
I'm sure they will, and they can find you on LinkedIn, Stephanie Nuesi.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I know Maricela really enjoyed that one because she kind of came back to me after that interview and she was done, and she was like, that was so fun. Thank you for setting up that interview. And I was like, no problem. I had a feeling you would love her. Let's get into our history makers for this week. Christina Koch will become the first woman astronaut on a lunar mission. I'm so excited. Oh, she had better get to walk on the moon, because the fact that we've never had a woman walk on the moon is crazy. Ileana Rivera became Wisconsin's first ever woman beer night. Like beer as in BEER, which is the best title that I've ever heard in my entire life. And I think that we should be honoring the heck out of her, because that's amazing. Dr. Yolanda Sanchez became the first Latina to lead a National Cancer Institute designated cancer center in the United States. Ruru Yang Xiaoru became Hong Kong's first woman to hold an Asian boxing title. Natalie Simon became the first Black woman to referee an MLS match. And Stephanie Houston is the founder of Island Getaway Rum, the first Latina-owned distillery in Texas. Congratulations to all of our history makers. And don't forget, join us back next week for another one of my interviews with Melanie Boer, who believes that every business expert has a book inside them. As a culture expert and best-selling author herself, she understands how a book can enhance your professional career and open doors to promote your business. She's president of the Influence Network Media, a go-to media company for business experts to produce, publish, and promote business books for other business experts. Can't wait for that. Join us next week. Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.